Welcome to the Vector Guide. In this video, we're going to explore some styling in Illustrator. This is supposed to be a word mark, and it has this element where that text is woven with this ring. And then there are some additional elements that we want to style. And we want to make that efficiently, of course, but also we want this to be editable, because maybe you are not really finished with your ideation and want to be able to move things around. I'm going to start with that ring element. So there are two ellipses, and we're just going to make a compound path by pressing Command 8 or Control 8 on Windows. And now I need a copy of that to have this shading, and just going to copy with Command C or Control C on Windows, and then paste behind with Control and B or Command B on the Mac. Now let's move this a little up and to the left using the arrow keys, and then I'm going to apply the color. And you see it's also up here, so I do not want that. So let's just make that a little smaller. And of course, now the inner ring is just too large. So what can we do? We can double click this and then just enlarge this one slightly. And also we could move it around. So we can now go and move this around. And again, I'm going to double click it, this time making the outer one a little smaller. It needs to be hidden. So now we also need to style the text. I'm going to select that, give it a white fill, and then I'm going to open the appearance panel, create a new fill to that, and move it below the characters. And now this needs to be offset. So let's offset the path by 1 millimeter, and let's make this round. And also we can do the same with this one here with a little variety. So let's first make it white and then add another fill below the characters, and that fill I'm going to apply convert to shape, rounded rectangle. This is going to be 0.5 corner radius, and here I'm going to apply 2 and 0 extra height, like this. I'm going to leave it like that. You see, this looks somewhat differently, and we can edit that later on to get that into the design. So first of all, I'm going to move this. I want to have it like here. So now we need to intertwine them. And there's even a function called like this. I'm going to select these two, and they need to be grouped so that they are both in one object. I'm going to make a duplicate of this, so we have that for later use. And now we could go to Object, Intertwine, Make. That is a nice function. So you just move that cursor over here and click once, and then you have intertwined it. But the trouble with this function is what it creates. So let's just make another copy. And in the end, if this is a logo, you cannot deliver it like this because it would not work for cutting and stuff like that. So you would have to expand it. And when you do that by going to Object, Expand Appearance, and now we're going to Object, Expand, and just expand that object. And you see, this is going to create a clipping mask. Let's go to the Layers panel, and you see there's a clip group. Now it's just one clip group here. So probably we can actually also expand that clipping mask, but expanding clipping mask in Illustrator can be a real pain. So having intertwine is great while you're in ideation and just moving things around and figuring it out, but in order to prepare for production, it doesn't always work pretty well. So if you want to do the like of intertwining for production, then I would prefer Live Paint for that. But Live Paint has another issue because Live Paint cannot have live text in it. So Live Paint also cannot have appearances in it. So for Live Paint, you would have to expand this appearance and also the text, and only then you can make the Live Paint group. So the text wouldn't be editable. So that is suitable for a lot of things, but maybe not for the situation in which you might need to change text or font. Let's just delete this here. Now the next thing we need to do, we have this intertwine here. Now we need to piece this together that we can add all the surrounding lines that are there. So let's first take this one here. I have grouped them already and I'm going to move them here. They are on top, which might not be good, so let's just arrange them and send them to the back, which is better. And then also we are going to move that one here, and probably I'm going to the rounded rectangle and reducing that. And if you want to have more distance to the bottom, then probably you could not just make a larger rectangle, but in this case, you would have to move the rectangle, because if you make it larger, then it would eat from the text above, and that's not desirable. So let's go in here and move it. So we're going to add another effect to it, the transform effect, and let's just move that a little down like this, and that looks like okay. In this case, now I have used the effect. The effect has the advantage that when I edit the text or when I choose another font, it will adapt to that. But of course, the moving around of that rectangle is a little clumsy. So you might want to have that as a separate rounded rectangle, which would also make sense here. So now in order to add our first shape behind that, we need to select all of them and group them. Now we go into the appearance panel again, add another shape to that, move that below the contents, and I'm going to make it pink. And now we can add another effect, offset path 1, and then make it rounded. So now you see we've got another issue in here. And when encountering this, then usually what I would do is add a pathfinder effect, divide. But you see, divide does not work here. It makes a rectangle here, which of course happens because of that mask. Because in this appearance stack, the intertwine has been expanded automatically, which is somewhat less than desirable, but couldn't be prevented, unfortunately. So we can't do that. I'm going to undo it, and then we can do something else. We can add another fill to here, but this time it doesn't have the offset path. It doesn't need that. I'm going to convert this to an ellipse and just make that pretty small. It doesn't need to be that huge. It just needs to cover up that area here. So it's sitting in the back, covering that up, just that. So let's put it on top so you see there it is. And if it doesn't match, you can also always move it to the left. So let's give it a transform effect and move it horizontally. So that's it. And then we can move it into the back. And now we just need another of these offset paths. So I'm just going to drag it over here, put it into the back, and make it a little lighter, offset the path slightly more, and then we can also, I've selected the group now, we can add a drop shadow to this. It's automatically put down here, so it's applied as the last effect. So now you see, well, maybe I want to add these white circles in between. So we can go to the direct selection tool, select this one, and then we can go in here and add another fill to that. And of course, what we also could do is just draw a circle in here. But it could be easier to handle when we just add another fill here, make that white, and then put an offset path to here and reduce that, maybe not so much, whatever you like. And then we have that. And then maybe it should be in the front. Then we need to go into the layers panel, and it's in here. So let's just drag it there. And then of course we can just hold down the Alt key and make some more like this. And you see they adapt to this perfectly. And we could, let's double click it to get into isolation mode. You see you can also scale them and then arrange until you like that. So what's happening when we're done with that? I'm going to make a duplicate. And in this duplicate, I'm going to delete the drop shadow effect in order to get pure vector output. And now let's just go to Object, Expand Appearance. Everything gets expanded. We get all these outlines and offset paths and everything. But there are still live text elements in it. So let's go to Type, Create Outlines, and then really everything is outlined, as you can see in Outline View. But as you can also see from the boxes, there are still clipping masks in there. Now, we only have shapes, there are no strokes anymore. And when we do not have strokes anymore, then pathfinders actually can work. I'm going bold, and what I'm going to do is, let's open the Pathfinder panel. We're going to use merge. And you see, when we compare this to that version, then merge has done a nice job. And in Outline View, this is perfect. Nothing else to do here. That is fine. So merge can be really useful here. If you have issues with clipping masks and there are no strokes inside, then you can also use crop to expand your clipping masks, but really only when there are no longer strokes in it.